Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of our bi-weekly webinar. As you get logged in, grab your coffee, get your snow shovels out. We're having second, maybe third winter now. I think it was recently brought to me that we have second winter, which comes sometime in March. So I guess third winter must come sometime in April here in Wisconsin. And for those of you out east, I guess it comes now for you as well. So as you guys get to log in, I want to make sure that you guys get a quick moment here. We've had a busy couple of weeks, so there's an awful lot to tell you about. I've got a few things that I've been doing lately. Yesterday, I had a very fortunate time with Stephen M.R. Covey. I've also been to Abundance 360 and had some wonderful times there as well. So we'll talk a bit more about that at our forum coming up as well. I'll touch on a few items today. But going big, it's good to be home. I've been away at Easter and then spring break and then the other forums for a bit. And it's really nice to be back here in the office, seeing everybody on a consistent basis and to get just a chance to settle down into life again here. So with that, I will pass it to Ken.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. I am grateful for the opportunity to see some of this technology we talk about with Elon Musk and SpaceX. And it was actually had a chance to see the Kennedy Space Center and where they launched like Falcon 9s and the Falcon Heavies. And it really interesting to see how they use Launch Pad 39A, which was the home of Saturn V, which was really interesting. So a lot of history there, but also a lot of the new stuff going on with Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos and his rockets, and really kind of neat to see the practice in actually real life. So grateful for that experience, and hopefully my kiddos were able to pick up something about space that they didn't know before, and maybe they'll be astronauts. Who knows?
Once in a while, they used to call me a space cadet. I'm not sure an astronaut was the key, though. So let us pass it over to Zach. How about Zach? What are you grateful for?
Thank you, Chris. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have a quick trip to Arizona over the weekend. So saw some of the Gentian family that we have out there, and it wasn't much different weather than we have here, just 30 degrees warmer. So it was rainy, which does not happen very often in Arizona, but still got a chance to hike in the Superstition Mountains, which I love. If any of you have been on the eastern side of Phoenix and looking out towards Mesa, you'll see a really cool shaped mountain and a plateau, and it's the start of the Superstition Mountains. So really enjoyed that time and grateful and blessed to be able to do that.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Well, Zach was out there. He actually was hiking and he'd fallen down. He asked me this question, Chris, what falls and never needs a bandage? I said, I'm not sure, Zach. What is it? He says, the rain. So it actually worked out pretty well. So I appreciate that one, Zach. How about Mike?
There's the snow would have been very appropriate.
I know, I get it. I had to try to meet Zach's needs.
It makes perfect sense to me. I'm grateful for old photos, old photo albums, that box that exists in everybody's basement that just has all of these developed photos just sitting there. Recently, I have a birthday coming up, and we have been putting on some pictures for, everybody's birthdays and things like that. And so Jenny has reminded me that I needed to submit one. So that sent me into a rabbit hole of about 2 hours of looking at old pictures in my parents' basement last night. And it was pretty cool, from seeing pictures of her family on Christmas Eve from 1979, sending it to all my uncles to when I caught my first fish, things like that. So grateful for those old pictures and those old memories that just create stories and things to talk about.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Michael. How about Lisa?
Hi, good morning. You reminded me this morning we're talking about spring break. I think spring break is the meaning of what's going on right now. Spring is literally taking a break. So
it is. It is.
So that's this weekend. I'm actually grateful for what's going to be coming up this next week. I am going to be having some surgery, some minor surgery, anything major, but it's a decision that hopefully will be a benefit to me and to everyone else around me for being in pain for so long. So I'm just excited to finally get something done and hopefully fixed, and I'll be back and up and running, so to speak, soon. So I'm grateful for that.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate you as well. So we'll get to each corner and Mike's minute, and we'll get to Zach's facts here coming up in a bit. But at first, I just wanted to touch on something as well. And I guess I probably haven't given you too many dad jokes lately, so maybe I should throw a few more of those in, or not. I'll just hold off on those. There's a couple of very interesting things. Yesterday, we got to spend an hour with, or actually 2 hours with Stephen M.R. Covey. That's Stephen Covey's the son of Stephen Covey, if you will, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But there's some wonderful things in a book he put out about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, you heard about from us. He pre-published it with us in a group we have called Empowered Wealth. And with the Trust and Inspire, he gave us some wonderful little cards and reminders that trusting and inspiring versus command and control. I want to just give you a quick idea of what that means. So the old way used to be, I tell you what to do, you do it, and that's how it worked, right? That's back in the 50s and 60s. That was a lot of like line workers, a lot of just rote work that we used to have to do. But today we're looking more at this as something with today's environment. I'm going to trust you and inspire you to do it. And it's a really good refresher and reminder, even raising children, how that's shifted from if you tell them what to do, they really kind of come back at you. But when you actually trust them, say, hey, listen, I'd like this lawn to be green and clean, just like this. And you give them an empower. There's a great little story that goes around that where Stephen M.R. Covey, literally his dad did this to him and he failed at it. And he came back and he was really quite amped about it. He was crying and he said, Dad, this is so hard to keep the lawn green and clean. He goes, well, son, what would you like? He goes, can you help me? He said, yes. And from then on, he found that he kept the lawn exactly as it was. He was his own boss. It was one of the most effective things that he's ever done in his life. So this whole generational shift to trust and inspire, when you really trust people, I guess you have to have some fundamental beliefs that there's greatness in people, that you've got most people are good, that actually they've got something tremendous in them. They just need encouragement to get there. And the beautiful thing about this too is Stephen has some wonderful placeholders that go along with it, cards that actually have as well called Trust and Inspire. So it's kind of a fun thing and reminder. I know many of you know when I study books now, I don't read them, but I study them. There's some wonderful pieces. This is a study aid like I've never seen before though. So wonderful to have, wonderful to work through. I'll probably be just reminding myself with them as we go along. I wish every book had these kind of cards to go along with them because it gives you an idea of how you should work with people. So one of the goals here is to become better and better person so we can work better and better together. So just thought I'd share a few of those with you. It was a wonderful 2 hours. At the end, I did ask him something that combined my interest in artificial intelligence, not my interest, but in my experience with the great AI debate at Abundance 360. So I'm with a whole bunch of people who are creating avatars and chatbots and neural networks of people. How do you think this trust and inspire is going to work when people actually trust artificial intelligence? He said, if you call it artificial intelligence, the answer is no. He doesn't think people will trust it necessarily. If you find it as a companion for maybe a senior who has nobody with them, you're going to find some incredible practical uses for it, but it'll never replace the you and I sitting across from each other. It was a really great conversation. We talked about more and more, but I won't bore you with some of that. I just want to say it was a great time. We had a great opportunity to spend 2 hours with him and bring back some wonderful pieces that I'll share with you on a future basis as well. With that, there's a lot going on with markets. We had a couple of rough days here or one rough day to begin this year. We had a wonderful end, if you will, of the first quarter. A lot of people now are starting to believe too that with the economy being as strong as it is, that the Fed may not be as aggressive at cutting rates. So that messes with the bond markets a little bit and all as well. Remember, in a long-term plan, none of this is important for your long-term plan. It's just interesting on a day-to-day basis if you follow it like we do when we're looking at plans. With that, why don't I take it over to Mike's Minute? I'll lead right into his because he's got some wonderful things he can share with us. Been a lot of conversations lately about what's going on with some of the portfolios managers. Mike, why don't you enlighten us?
Thanks, Chris. Really, really appreciate it. And you led into this perfectly. This is my favorite time. Every 2 weeks, I get to talk about the Federal Reserve. So in 28 days, 3 hours, 48 minutes, and 15 seconds now, the Federal Reserve will have another meeting. We'll hear whether or not they're going to raise, well, more than likely not raise, but we'll hear if they will lower or keep things the same. And right now, there's this new thing that's come about, and it's the idea of no landing. So we've heard of the Federal Reserve causing a hard landing. What does that mean? A pretty brutal recession. A soft landing is a mild recession, something that the economy can easily withstand and hopefully bounce back from very quickly. That's been more or less the accepted thought process for what's going to happen with the economy and Federal Reserve and how they've been managing interest rates. But most recently, we're reading about the potential of a no landing situation. What does that mean? That the plane just keeps going. Economy keeps rolling up, things keep going well. Isn't that supposed to be a really good thing for the stock market? Well, yesterday they decided it wasn't, and we watched things kind of turn in the other direction. A little bit of a catch-22 because it comes back to the idea that, now all of a sudden the Federal Reserve can keep rates higher, and if that no lending comes to fruition and they decide not to raise rates, and they believe that that could be the case, that the economy is resilient enough come July, if they don't raise rates, the consensus of that, who I've spoken with, who work directly with fund managers, different things like that, is that we may not see, or I'm sorry, if they don't lower rates and they keep things the same in July, that we may not see a lower of rates this year. And why might that be? Well, because we have a crazy huge event coming up that's so important. Well, it's the election. And that we always speak of not being something that's important to influence the stock market over long term. Maybe in the short term, we'll see some volatility. But regardless of that fact, something that the Fed has to do is remain neutral. And so for them to make a decision to lower rates leading into the election, it could dictate that maybe there was a certain perception towards a certain party, something like that. And something I want to, if anybody's ever seen a picture of Jerome Powell or anything like that, he always wears a purple tie. Why? Because if he wears red or blue, it can become a perception that he is actually supporting one party or the other. That is how neutral and how careful they have to be. And that makes others think that they might not do any change leading into an election because of how it could influence people's opinions of who's running for president. So I think that's a fascinating thing to think about. We'll see what happens coming up here. But right now there's a lot of different things. And I guess the good news at the end of the day is it sounds like the economy is continuing to do pretty well. Thanks, Chris.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that as well. I think what's interesting about what's going on is that when things are too good, people are concerned. When things are too bad, people are concerned, almost equally. So that just shows you that the human emotion is not a great investment policy. With that, I want to say we want to continue with our faith, patience, and discipline that we've gotten. There's a bunch of other things that Mike went through. He usually, we get to talk about them in our chats at 5 to 5:45 when I'm supposed to be going home, but we have these great conversations then. So it's kind of a fertile ground for all the other conversations Mike's had, which we'll share with you as we go along. How about
Standing in the rain yesterday, Chris? That was a good one.
Yeah, we had a 15-minute conversation in the snowish rain outside in the parking lot rather than inside, which was, following our 30-minute conversation here. So that was fun. But then again, that's third spring. We'll have third spring, I guess, coming up soon. So what I'd like to go over to is Zach's facts. Zach, what's going on? What's going on that we should know about?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. When you mentioned, equally concerned both ways, it reminded me of just scanning through a few news articles yesterday. Whenever the markets are temporarily down 0.5%, 1%, a normal daily movement one way or the other, when it's temporarily down, it's the word choice is incredible. It's spirals down, huge drop. When it's slightly up, it's a slight rise in the market. It's just extremely interesting to view and to see. But all the indices that we'll talk about here in a second are all up from 2 weeks ago. So we're excited to digest all the information coming at us from Q1. A couple of those resources we truly enjoy and just go through all of them to look at the different metrics that occurred during the quarter. So the Dow Jones up about 4% on the year, the S&P just over 9%, and Q1 was the largest first quarter gain since 2019 for the S&P. The NASDAQ just up over 8%. The Russell 2000 is just under 2%. And with emerging markets, like we'll talk about here in a second, are the two biggest gainers over the last 2 weeks. So about just a little over 1% for each of those, almost 1.5%. The international up about 3% on the year, and emerging markets 1.8%. It's been undervalued for 3, 4, 5 years now, but the biggest gainer over the last 2 weeks. A few random facts that we saw that were extremely interesting. So March 23rd of this last month was the 4-month anniversary of the COVID low. From that low through March 20th of this year, the S&P's annualized total return has been over 25%. Its average return has a gain of 176%. Only 35 companies of the S&P 500 actually declined since the COVID low of 2020, where 286 actually have doubled in value. So extremely interesting to see the growth over that amount of time. And really, we talk about it a lot, but really applauding each of you during that time, because it was not certain at all, as we all know, since, really 2020, and even a little before then as well. One other thing that Chris, Mike, and I talked about yesterday is we hear a lot about the Magnificent Seven. The Magnificent Seven was responsible for 40% of the S&P's return year to date. But last year was actually over 60% of the return. So one thing we looked at and talked about was just the breadth of the market is getting a little bit wider with some other companies emerging and starting to do really well. So with that, we'll hand it back to you, Chris.
Chris, you're muted.
That was just my rehearsal. So just so you know, next month is the shortest month of the year, right? May. It only has 3 letters. So that's coming up. We've got that to look forward to as well. Second one as well is it's allergy season is starting. You got to be pawing my leg. Good one. That's a groaner right there. Send that to your friends. It's a great one for the kiddies. Anyway, with that, I'd like to bring in a couple of ideas up of Ken in planning. What do we need to look at in Ken's corner?
Yeah, Chris. Okay, so I'm gonna tell a dad joke because I think
No way.
I think I could beat that one. So my son Asher is 7. You know, young kids get into things they shouldn't. He accidentally drank a bottle of invisible ink recently, and now he's at the hospital waiting to be seen. All right, that was there we go. That's another groaner there. So Chris talked about the great debate. There's also something called the Social Security great debate. When we take Social Security, do we take it early? Do we take it later? When do we take Social Security? When you look at a financial plan, sometimes it says to take it later, actually. Sometimes it says to take it earlier. So it's really specific based on your scenario. Some of the ideas behind it is money today versus money tomorrow. That's also like when do we need more money? When do we want more money? During our go-go years, during our slow-go, during our no-go years? You know, when do we want more money to do the things that we're hoping to do with our life at that point in time? Social Security does not live past you. That's another thing to consider as well. You also have your investments, which is the greatest nest egg you have, which produces the greatest amount of income. So that's also something to take into consideration there. So what are we seeing right now? Zach didn't mention rebalancing, but being on an airplane recently, you think about an airplane, you think about it taking off. It's headed in the right direction, right? But I would say that probably 90% of the time it's off course. And if it never corrects itself, it will probably land. Whoever's on that plane will probably miss the airport by 100 miles if it doesn't self-correct itself. So that reminds me of rebalancing. It's these small tweaks, it's these things that we do along the way that change the course of where we land. And that is rebalancing. That's another way to kind of look at the analogy of rebalancing is that we will land on the airport. Our goal is to have you landing on that landing strip nice and smooth for retirement and beyond. That's what rebalancing really does for us. And that's the kind of the airplane analogy I have there. So a piece that I'm seeing right now with business owners, when we look at business owners and we look with the people that we work with, there's great opportunities with business owners as far as shielding from taxes, opportunities they have, taking a look at what they do with their planning, how it parlays from the business into their personal scenario. There's a few things going on there, and I just want to recently bring up something here. We're able to identify an opportunity recently for a business owner she has her own business, and she has basically a consulting and design business. And by opening up what we call a solo 401k, we were able to shield away money for her. And we saved the tax accountant told me this, we saved about just shy of $20,000 in taxes this year alone, just for that one idea right there. So business owners have some unique opportunities. Sometimes it depends if there's employees involved or not. The IRS says, hey, we have to keep it fair across if we do have employees, but if we're a solo entrepreneur or have a business of our own, there's unique opportunities there. So I wanted to bring that piece up on the business owner side of things, as we do talk a lot about personal planning, but it parlays into the personal planning, if that makes sense. So another thing we continue to see is conversion planning, of course. With the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring in 2025, we see opportunities on a tax landscape. We're talking to you in meetings about that, of course. We also see the qualified charitable giving, the QCDs, in tandem with conversion planning. Those two go together really nicely. And also gifting ideas that we're seeing there as well. So, from gifting $18,000 per person to who you like for how many people, that's out there. Funding Roth IRAs for grandkids as ideas that we're seeing right now as well. Also those 529 plans that are out there for college savings plans. So the idea of gifting, there's lots of ways to do it. Gift now, gift later, gift, stock, gift cash. There's a lot of stuff that you can do there. But again, these are some ideas you bring up to us and some of your wishes, and we find the best solution to help you out. So with that being said, Chris, I'm going to send it back to you.
Thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate that as well. So just a touch from what I've been at recently, which is Abundance 360. It's interesting. The concept there was the great AI debate. And there's a great AI debate right now. When you call about artificial intelligence, it doesn't bring up a real rosy picture to most of America. Not of those who are creating it with the intention that they believe is good, it's human, it's really got a great aspect to it, that they believe they're creating it with a wonderful humankind large language model behind it. The thing is, it is somebody's large language model, and you don't know whose it is. It's iterative, it reads itself, it adds to itself over time. So the interesting thing about iterative are also, let's talk about neural networks. These neural networks and iterative AI or large language models like chat.gpt, they do learn from themselves, they do learn, and basically they just predict the next word that should come after something as well. That's why once in a while you'll read something from a chat.gpt or an AI bot, and you go, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Sometimes it's like you're talking to your brother or sister-in-law. Interestingly, though, it's an interesting piece when you start to put that into real avatars, or as we got to work with Amika, there's 3 actually robots that were there as well. They now have skin that's very soft and close to resembling human faces. What they do, though, is they leave the brain component open, so you can see that there's actually AI inside. They're trying not to freak everybody out with this. But when we're talking to Amika, she would literally follow your eyes when you were talking to her and if you moved. And you start to look at these kind of things, it becomes odd when an AI is actually following, when a robot is following you, speaking back to you, because it's using chat.gpt's large language model. You can ask her questions. She'll respond to you in a very kind voice. You can choose the voice as well. It starts to show this massive, rapid transformation where they're making them more human-like. So they're being very, very careful with this to be kind, emotive, and look for, oh, you must not be feeling well. So a big purpose of this is in many countries to care for the elderly who may be lonely. Also to help people who are suffering potentially from, suicidal thoughts and anxiety. Now, here's my interesting statement. I'm at this convention, or not really a convention, it's a conference. There's 360 of us plus staff, plus a team from Singularity University. Elon Musk zoomed in 3 times as well and talked to us. But you go through all this conversation, and my one major question is, if you go over the last, say, 10 to 19 years and you just look at the human happiness data, there's more anxiety amongst teens, there's more suicide, there's less general happiness across the board. So it seems possibly that this progress in technology has led to regress in human happiness. And I said, if that's the equation, I'm out. I'm really not that concerned with it. Now, it's not that easy. You can't just be out of technology. It's literally going to disrupt you or you'll be disrupted. So the big conference conversation was disrupt or be disrupted. I looked at it. That's an interesting statement. You want to know what's going on with it. We'll keep you abreast of it in our program coming up as well. I'll talk a lot more about what's happening with generative AI, but it is moving at a rate with which nobody knows its speed. 6 years ago, I brought this up to Ray Kurzweil in the group. I brought up a question, which is, if you're creating something that learns from itself, how can you predict how fast it'll learn if it becomes better learning than you can comprehend? It was silent, just like that. We had Ray Kurzweil there, who's apparently going to live to 140, who's 72 years old and looks like he might not make 73. He's slowed down precipitously, but he believes by 2029, you'll reach longevity escape velocity as well. Longevity escape velocity is the point where if you live a year, you get another year. Right now, if you live a year, you get another 4 months. That's what's happening with health. But every 9 months or so, all health information data is doubling. So they're finding more and more cures and things that will prevent some of the things that we have that are maybe causing less causing worse health now. They'll be able to look at those items and maybe help us live longer in a healthy way. I call health-gevity. So that's what we're interested in. We're not interested in living to 100 or 120, non-productive and unable to do things for ourselves. But if you can live at 100 like you were at 30 or 40, that's what people are interested in. So most people in the world don't want to live longer in their present condition. That was one thing that was evident too. But as I go through this, people ask me, so what is the great AI debate? What's going to happen with it? Nobody knows is my answer. There's a lot of experts out there and they don't even know the answer to it. There's a lot of predictive things we'll talk about here as well, a lot of very cool things that are being created as well. But I wanted to give you some of the bigger aspect of it. First things, my summary, the very first thing I wrote down is that first, nobody knows. That's number one. Number two, this is the slowest things will be. Prepare to live a life in acceleration. Things will not go back to the old way unless you choose to move to a state where they just eliminate technology. The beautiful thing is if you're truly afraid of artificial intelligence and if it gets too big, we simply pull the plug. Now, if there's no electricity and it really took over and something happened that way, there's no Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin only exists on electric impulses on computers. So there's a couple of things here you have to look at and base future technologies that are just easily unpluggable. Another, I put working with the human equation through emotive betterment, listening, getting to know each other deeply and becoming better humans, being able to recognize others and help them feel important, realizing their place in the world is most likely going to be a winning equation on a go-forward basis. That was my third point, because everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and what it will do. It exposes us as humans could become worse communicators in the last several years because we feel that we're linked in on a telephone, right? You see stuff, so you think you're connected to people, but you're just simply voyeuristically watching them. There's some great aspects of it too, connecting families, but when it replaces real human interaction, that's an issue. Another one I realized is stories are greater than facts. You can have people tell stories on the internet that will by far outweigh true facts. The internet is also the biggest confirmation bias source you can ever find. So there's a whole lot more that go with it, but those are the first 4 or 5 that I wrote down. There's a bunch that goes down here. I'd say we're going to stay married to the question, is AI, let me flip that around. Where will AI most likely help us? We had a whole workbook here. It's called a thinking workbook. Apparently, we're unable to think without a workbook, which was quite funny. So we did have a workbook here, and the questions were this. What are your top 3 challenges? How will AI address your challenges? What are your top 3 strengths? This is a great personal assessment too. How might generative AI erode your core strengths? Your top 3 2024 goals, and how might IA achieve those? So here's, how might AI erode your core strength? This is from Peter Diamandis. If AI enables others to replicate the experience and content delivered at the Abundance 360, number 2 is if AI generated sufficiently high fidelity avatars that dematerialize and democratize access to the most brilliant minds, the creation of all avatars at no cost that are all knowing. And if AGI or digital superintelligence enables an equivalent, better, or more dedicated leadership team operating 24/7, enabling others to leapfrog. So a lot of it was really around his Abundance 360 program. It's an interesting conversation. It's not in the next year, 2 or 3, but they are real concerns. It'd be great if we put those down for us and our family as well. We'd love to look at those, address those, and many of them aren't answerable. But I got to tell you, being prepared for what's coming, living a life in acceleration are extremely important. That's why I've dedicated the last 11 years to going to this, to bring you these kind of ideas and answers from the brightest minds out there. We'll talk more at the program. I don't want to go too far into it, but I wanted to give you a few of those at least to begin with. There's a bunch of AIs that can also help you if you're looking at moonshots, or if you're looking at, almost anything out there, and maybe figuring out how to get onto one of the chat type GPTs, or getting onto, it used to be called Bard, but they've renamed it at Google now as well. Working with one of those might be something you want to try just for a half an hour every day. It will be clunky at first, but you can ask it better and better questions, and you'll get better and better answers. With that, I'm going to pause for a moment here. I want to go to Lisa and say, what's important for us to pay attention to over the next few weeks, Lisa?
Okay, great. Well, we're all looking forward to hearing what you have to say as after this. We have limited office availability today as we're focusing on getting better, being better humans, listening to Chris's download, and then becoming a better team. On Friday, it is our very own Mr. Michael Mann's birthday. So anyone want to wish him a happy birthday can send some greetings to him. So happy birthday, Mike, for Friday. I won't be here, but I'll be thinking of you. And then on Monday, April the 8th, we have our virtual book club, and it is more of a recalibration. We did finish the book, but anyone who wants to join, please sign up for that. It was the How to Know a Person. So that was the book by David Brooks that we would all do in. And then on Wednesday, April the 10th, and I believe Jenny did send out another reminder for the volunteer opportunity that we have. for 10 volunteers looking to volunteer at the Domes in Milwaukee. We're still looking for a few people. If you still want to sign up for that, we'll gladly welcome. And then our April birthday club on Wednesday, April the 17th. I know we've had some people sign up for this, but as always, we look forward to seeing you for your birthdays. I did skip out on April the 15th, tax day. I don't know, none of you guys mentioned it, but it's kind of important for a lot of people who still need to get their taxes filed on April the 15th. That is the deadline for that. And then also on April the 24th, also mentioned in our weekly bulletins that go out via email, is our retirement readiness program. Where will you live? Giving you living choices as we mature workshops. It's going to be a very, very informative workshop for anyone who wants to figure out where they're going to live before anyone else makes that decision for you. So we're very excited, and I know we've had a lot of people question and look at that. So that is going to be on Wednesday, and then Thursday will be the second part of that program, where we'll be doing some tours around various facilities in the area, in the community. So that's kind of what's going on. I know at the end of the month, we've got Zach's birthday coming up too in April, so round out the month there, but that's basically what we've got going on. So back to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you to the two young men for their wonderful birthdays coming up. It's great to share those with you. Another trip around the sun is awesome always. April 15th is tax day? What are you talking about? Oh my gosh, I better start working on them. I'm kidding with you. So there's so many different things I want to share with you. I also been reading a great book that Zach had given to me a while ago called Book Same as Ever. And it explains why people want to follow the leaders in the market all the way to their peak and often well past the peak because they stick with them. So it's almost an inevitable ride for many people not to take profits at the proper time, but to ride them well past their peak to when they become maybe much lower in price. I'll leave it at that. But as I come back to this, I wanted to hop back to something. It comes from, I think, Henry David Thoreau. It's not what you look at, but it's what you see that is important. So it's not what you look at, it's what you see that is important. So with the coming wave of AI, many of you are probably well-versed in it. I'll only maybe enlighten you with a few different ideas for your kids, for your grandchildren, for a lot of the components of things you might need. Some of the avatars are looking at are things like travel assist robots, which might be something where it knows your preferences and it can go out and search all those websites for you. There's a lot of things that are coming, and it's going to be worked on like demand. Now, remember this word, and this is going to be talked about heavily at the program we have coming up as well, our spring seminar, our spring forum, I should say. And that is going to be a Gutenberg moment. What is a Gutenberg moment? Anybody? Raise your hand if you know. Good, no hands are going up. So here's what I want to say. A Gutenberg moment is when they used to print 6 copies of the Bible in a day. The Gutenberg moment was a printing press that allowed them to print 6,000, some number incredibly above what it was. It completely transformed the word, if you will, that's been transformed around the globe, which was the Bible, for instance. So I wanted to give you a quick idea here of what was going on. There is so much happening at one time. The conflux of the next 10 years, and this comes from Abundance 360, potentially has the opportunity to create more productivity than human beings have ever seen in a 10-year or 15-year period. So there's that opportunity on one end, extreme productivity, because each human that's employed will be able to do so much more with its machine avatars and machine learning and artificial intelligence programs as well. Also, they're talking about capturing your memories and memories that you might think are fleeting and gone, and being able to replace those in your head as well. A couple of great questions are, what will learning be? What will school be when all learning is available on a headset that you simply plug in and it's all available to you immediately? Maybe teaching kids to learn and to be curious is the key. So looking at this, there's a lot of major transformations. We're not talking about health, education. We're talking about every single industry, even industry like farming. John Deere is one of the biggest, I can't mention the name of the company. There's a big green company out there that is one of the top artificial intelligence companies in the world. You'd never guess that. So interestingly, I just wanted to go through. I know we've gone a bit over here, but I'm quite excited about this topic, and thank you for your patience and time with me going through some of these. I guess I'll leave it at this. You've seen this weather out here today. It's been raining, it's been snowing, it's been icing, it's been hailing. I mean, that's all interesting, but when it starts raining ducks and chickens, now that's foul weather. So from our headquarters here, our galactic headquarters here in Mequon, Wisconsin, I bid you adieu until our next program, which comes up in 2 weeks as well. We'll bring you what's happening at that point. We look forward to seeing many of you in appointments that we have scheduled this spring as well. But thank you tremendously for your trust in us, for being with us, for allowing us to guide you in your retirement. It is a pleasure and an honor for us here. We also want to thank you tremendously for the introductions you're giving to us and our team as well. We've created a team here that's able to help those and to help those that you love and those that you think also very highly of. So once again, I want to thank you for that. There's a lot of awards coming out that you guys have been winning lately as well. You'll see your rankings in Barron's. You'll see your rankings in some of the other big magazines out there. Why do I say it that way? Because they're your rankings. The team is here to be able to help you. Your trust in us creates the rankings that come in magazines. So when you see those, be proud because those are your awards, not mine. The team can take them as well. But I want to make sure that you understand, I know it's only there. My name's only in the magazine because of you sitting there looking at us on the screen. So thank you tremendously for that as well, but it is your award. I want to make sure you understand that. If we get a trophy or a big, award, something like that, we'll maybe have a traveling trophy. So we'll get a sign up coming up from Ashley and Lisa. I'm just joking on that. But at any rate, thank you once again. With that, have a great rest of your Wednesday and a great rest of your week. And we'll see you just after tax time.